tonight, I really held this meeting in order to make sure that our design team with the county, and I just want to give a really loud and clear disclaimer, I have no engineering skills at all. There are things I do well. There are things I don't do well. I would say that engineering isn't even something I know if I could do well. But I know that one of the things I do well is to try to make sure that I'm getting people together so that their voices are being heard and that the people in the room that are the experts in these things are able to answer their questions and hear their feedback. So that's really why we're here. There's been a lot that has gone into various segments of this road, so there is a lot of detail. And I want to thank the team who brought the open house large boards over there for really being able to give the visual depiction of the design as it currently stands and the way that it has been planned. I think that I'm a visual person, I'm a visual learner, and as a non-engineer, it really comes down to pointing and asking and pointing and asking. So I appreciate that. Thank you all so much for doing that. Thank you also, everybody who's come out now this 2 out of 2 times. I know that we have Captain Ela in the room. Our partners at Orange County Sheriff's Department have been really instrumental in trying to keep people safe. We also have Chief Buckin here in the house from Orange County Fire Rescue, because as we know, it takes really this entire group to make sure that our community is safe. So I really appreciate your time and you all being here. I hope they can also hear some of the concerns and questions, and if they have the opportunity to connect with you, that'll be helpful also. Okay, so I think that I am turning this over now to, and I apologize for leaving my piece of paper. I was going off script. A couple of housekeeping quick reminders for those of you that are frequent flyers to all things Orange County. There's a lot going on right now that I want to make sure that if you have thoughts about it, that you are participating. Vision 2050, which is the updates to our comprehensive plan. This has been in the works for some time. The last comprehensive plan was done, I don't even know how long ago. I'm looking at my team over there, but I know it was geared for 2030. This is the 2050. And what it is really the blueprint for our future growth and development. And so the engagements in our various districts have been a priority for our entire board. And District 1 is having 3. We've had one already in the Avalon Rural Settlement. There'll be one on June 29th at 6 p.m. at Gotham Middle School. And then there'll be one again in Dr. Phillips at 6 p.m. on July 12th. The location for that one hasn't been totally locked down yet, but we're going to make sure that we're hearing, I'm hoping to hear from people who live in different areas, because I think that when we look at the comprehensive plan and what we know about the growth patterns, they're very different in different areas of our county, and especially in District 1. I think mostly in District 1 as far as that wide variety of development. So please stay involved, keep in touch with us. Of course, if you don't get my newsletter, all of these meetings that we have, we try to make sure that we're giving you the full itinerary and anything that's coming down the pipeline. So come on up and grab my card, make sure you're following us and getting that newsletter if you're not already. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, of course, because we'll probably take a picture of you at some point if you don't mind, and share that. And then I'm going to turn this over to, I don't even know who's going first. Azim? You've been nominated. And then we're going to, at the end, be able to have an opportunity for question and answer feedback.
I would like to welcome everybody to the Ficquette and Reams Road community meeting. The highlighted segment shown will be widened to improve the level of service, traffic, operation, and improve safety along the corridor. Ficquette Road, shown in red, the project limit is from south of Engelnoak Drive to south of Summer Lake Boulevard. Reams Road, shown in green, the project limit is from south of Summer Lake Park Boulevard to Taylorfield Avenue. Tonight, we'll be talking about Ficquette Road improvements, Reams Road improvement, and interim improvements, and it's going to be a question-answer segment after that. First, we're going to talk about the Ficquette Road improvement. As I said before, the project limit for the Ficquette Road is from south of Engelnoak Drive to south of Summer Lake Park Boulevard. The improvement includes widening from 2-lane rural to 4-lane, urban, including curb, gutter, and inlets. And it's going to be also the project includes 5 feet sidewalk on the east side of the road and 10 to 14 feet multi-use trail on the west side of the road. This section you're looking at is showing the cross-section basically north of the Summer Lake Parks Boulevard. If you come south of the Summer Lake Park Boulevard, the trail would move to the east and the sidewalk would be at the west. And the trail would continue 14 feet wide up to the limit of the project. We also have lighting on this project and also median landscaping. The project schedule is designed to be completed late this year, but for all practical purposes, really, this design is completed. We're 90% and very close to going to 100% plan. The only item we have outstanding, we have some coordination with Orange County Utility. Once when that's completed, we can ask for 100% plan. So, and also we have all the permits for this project. We have the drainage permit for this project. We're waiting for the DEP permit, which is going to come very soon. It's like we have only very minor comments for that. The right-of-way acquisition was started already. Is to be completed at the end of 2025. It's ongoing right now. And the construction to start toward the end of 2025. The intersection that you're looking right now is the Summer Lake Parks Boulevard with Ficquette Road. If you notice in the beginning, the first slide, when right now under existing condition, the Ficquette Road comes down and then makes the S-turn and going south. It's like a very not very smooth transition. We purchased additional right-of-way at the east side, and we moved the Ficquette Road more to the east and make it a straight, more like a smooth transition. And also, we're going to have mass storm on this intersection. We have 3 signalized intersection. This is right now the existing condition in Summer Lakes Parks Boulevard. After the improvement, there's going to be a new mass storms in this intersection. And we're going to have also signals at New Independence Parkway, at Deputy Scott Pine Community Park, and of course, the Summer Lake Park Boulevard. Also, we're going to have an emergency signal at the fire station number 44, which is south of this intersection. The drainage, the roadway elevation is designed above the 100-year storm, so we make sure the road is not flooded when the 100-year storm happens. Also, this picture you're looking at is right now the existing pond at the intersection of Summer Lake, Park Boulevard, and Ficquette Road. This existing pond going to be used for this project, and also we're going to have 2 new ponds, one at the north end of the project where the park is, and also one at the south end of the project. So at this point, I want to turn the podium over to Mr. Roberto Ng. He's the project manager for the Reams.
So for Reams Road, we're going to be widening the road also to 4 lanes. We are having a sidewalk on the south, a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side of the road, and a 14-foot path on the north side of the road. We're adding a wildlife crossing. We are also putting lighting and median landscape. We are extending the landscape all the way to Delmar, which was widened a few years back. So, and last thing we want to tell you is that we are going to post the speed to 35 miles per hour in this corridor. As far as the schedule, we are going to be finalizing the design early next year. And we have started the right-of-way acquisition already, and we hope to end the right-of-way acquisition by the end of 2026, and then start construction also at the end of 2026. The signalized intersections that you see on the board, on the screen, have been warranted. There are Oasis Cove and Torcello Isle Drive, Buena Place, Floridian Place, Center Drive, and New Market, Bay Court, and Tableford. As far as drainage, We also are designing the road to above the 100-year elevation. We're adding 6 new ponds, and we're adding a box culvert. And then Jennifer's going to tell you about the wildlife crossing.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I just don't feel like I'm talking loud enough. So we are going to put a wildlife crossing. It is going to be near Peachtree Park and Green Bank. So the wildlife crossing, this one is the first one of the kind that we're doing. So in the middle, you're going to see a 10 by 6.5 aquatic crossing, which is a large box culvert. And then on either side of the box culvert are going to be elliptical pipes that are equivalent to a 36-inch. So it's like a 36-inch squash pipe. And in order to get the wildlife funneled there, what we're going to do is we're basically, it looks like a little critter sidewalk, like a little wildlife sidewalk, just below the crossing. It will go perpendicular with the wetland until it gets to the upland. And then we're going to have wildlife fencing that will put them to the little sidewalk, if you will. So they'll have the way to get through the middle crossing, and then on each side, there'll be 2 upland crossings. In the middle of the road, you'll see where it says a ditch bottom inlet. It's like a grate so that the wildlife can see inside, because wildlife, if it's really dark, they will not enter the facility. So that way, even at night, with the lighting, they'll be able to see through, they'll feel safe, and they'll converge across the road. So does it, I don't know if anybody, who's next? Umberto.
I am next. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Here, do you want to?
Yes, I get it.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Humberto Castillero. I am the Traffic Engineering Manager, and it is a pleasure to be here with you this evening. So a lot of great things we have heard about these 2 projects. And it takes a village to raise, a great transportation system, a lot of planning that it has to go through. So hopefully we're getting towards the end. I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the interim safety improvements that we have been able to address. So for the last several years, we have heard that there is excessive speeding along the corridor, and also, unfortunately, an inordinate amount of the wildlife kills. So based on your concerns and our concerns, we have established and incorporated some of the traffic control measures. So I just will carry you through the corridor. So if you can see a Reams Road right here on the east side, as it begins to transition from the 4 lanes to the 2 lanes at Tower Field. So that's the posted speed at that location is 45 miles per hour. So in order to address the excessive speeds, we began to install the warning speed limit signs to 35 miles per hour. So as we approach the curve at the new market, going all the way to Ficquette, the warning signs are 35 miles per hour, traveling both westbound, north, and traveling eastbound. So the idea is to begin to tell the drivers that traffic conditions are changing and that they should be reducing their speed limit. As we approach the Disney parking lot, we don't have a new signal, the Floridian, so that is a span wire signal. That is going to be changing to a mass arm signal, as it was indicated. A part of that is what do we do with the speeds in there? So we have a warning flashing signal ahead, just to tell the people traveling northbound, begin to slow down, so as we are coming out of the curve. Past the Floridian, that's where we begin to have at this location, especially for the green area, that we have the wildlife animals that they're crossing at those locations. So to address that concern, we have installed a multitude of warning signs. Some of them there with flashing beacons, there with the highlighted LEDs that you can see them at night. Also, we begin to tell the drivers and said, watch for wildlife for the next 1.5 miles, and that traverses all the way to Ficquette Road. As we begin traveling northwestbound, before the curve that we have, I believe that is Oasis and Cove, we do have a speed feedback sign. Some of the things perhaps that we can take a look at it is maybe we can add some additional speed feedback signs on the interim, but that is telling the drivers, slow down because you have this curve. Then we begin to traverse northbound, the fire station 44, so that is under construction. There is a temporary, there is a mass arm signal which No, it's not a mass arm. It's a span wire signal, which is gonna change to mass arm once we have the roadway widening, and then the intersection at Reams, Ficquette, and Summer Lake. So that is also a diagonal mass arm. So that is gonna be changing as you saw the alignment. Traveling likewise in the opposite, we begin to tell you as you're traveling southeastbound, slow down, watch for life and wildlife for the next 1.5 miles. We also have the speed warning signs to reduce the speed from 45 to 35 miles per hour all the way throughout the corridor. I want to bring special attention to the Floridian. On the Floridian side, we also have the race delineators. So the function of those delineators is just to make sure that as people are coming out of the parking lot, that they do not make these erratic maneuvers and that everything is made in an orderly manner, especially with the heavy commuters that we have. There's about 21,000 vehicles traveling through this two-lane corridor every single day. We also gather some safety data in terms of crashes from January of 2018 to December 2022, and there's about 125 crashes. There were 2 fatalities. We look at the crash reports, and that was excessive speeding, people running off the road and hitting a fixed object. The other ones, there were severe injuries. So safety is of paramount importance to us, so we have all of this data. Let me just show you what, okay, Jennifer. Okay, right here, yes, I was able to figure it out. So the E is traveling eastbound, but everything begins on the north, and then the west is traveling westbound. So starting from Ficquette, you can see the E1 is the temporary fire signal that we have. Then we begin the corridors with the watch for wildlife for the 1.5 miles per hour, all the warning speed limit signs indicating the curve is ahead, reduce it to 35 miles per hour. The wildlife crossing that we have at several locations within the corridor. Right there, E6, you can see the Floridian, that we have the race delineators with the curb cut. That is a great countermeasure, and believe it or not, they have remained in place because sometimes we get a lot of people driving over them and they just stick out, so it hasn't been a maintenance issue. We do have a flashing beacon with the curve ahead. E8, just approaching the first curve at Marketplace. Then traveling westbound, so we begin, that one is the flashing beacon for the Ficquette signal, Summer Lake Park. Then the speed feedback sign, this is traveling also westbound south of that. So we can definitely install some of them. They are a good countermeasure. The cost for each one of them is about $15,000. We usually install them in pairs. We know that it's going to be sometime before the final roadway it is constructed, so this is perhaps something that we can install. So we continue to have the 35 miles per hour. On the Floridian, you have no U-turns and no left turns, just to tell traffic. And then the W7, that is approaching the Floridian, traveling westbound. And last but not least, traveling westbound as you are approaching the new market. So we have those 35 miles per hour. So the idea with all of these, and there have been several countermeasures, not all of them that were installed at once, but this has been a progressive. It doesn't mean that this will be the last thing that we're going to do. As one of the requests that it just came lately, I just want to mention, there was the idea to install rumble strips, transverse, so as you are traversing through the rumble strips, it makes a noise. So you will feel a little bit of the vibration. We're not opposed to installing them, however, we do want for the people in the community, and this is what the DOT requires, for us, for the community to know that there's going to be some noise. Because if you have 21,000 vehicles traveling and we install it at several locations, then the noise is there to stay, and that is part of the countermeasure. So this is what we have been installed so far, and certainly we can consider some options and we're open. So that concludes my presentation. And now I would like to call Commissioner Wilson and then all the presenters for the Q&A.
Thank you so much. So I think, unless there was any other team members that had presentation pieces, that we'll open it up for questions right now. Let me just take a look around and see if there's anybody else. We've got lots of Orange County team members in the room, so there's a lot of expertise, and I really want to make sure that if you have a question or feedback, that this is the time that we make sure to get it out and heard. And then what we'll do, because we have one mic in a very large room, if it's okay, is we'll just do a line up here. We do have a hard stop at what time?
7:30.
7, okay, and let me just look over to Captain Elo to make sure there's no other announcements. Okay, so I'm getting the go-ahead. If anybody have questions, please come on up here and we'll just make sure that we're getting on the mic. And also we're recording so that if anybody who's not here wants to see later what was brought up, that we can make sure to have that shared. Come on up, David.
Hi,
How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, so there's a question at the end of this, but I'm gonna say that, and I'd have to think I probably speak for a lot of people in here. I appreciate the safety, addressing the safety concerns, but in the end, this is because the county is late at getting this job done. This is not about people's behavior or anything else. This road should be done already. 21,000 cars should not be driving down these roads every day. This was irresponsible. And I'm not trying to blame any one person. I get it. You guys have to have budgets you have to deal with and elected officials you have to deal with who have to get stuff approved. And Nicole, we appreciate all the work you've been doing on getting this stuff done for us. You've been doing a great job. But we're late. We shouldn't be in this situation. It should be done already. We shouldn't be looking at 4 to 8 years before this is fixed. So that's my question in the end, is what can we do to move people faster through this area now? As an example, one of the things that some of the residents were sharing with people over there was looking at the Summer Lake Park, Ficquette, Reams intersection and extending the right turn lane from Summer Lake Park onto Reams. Just extending that turn lane so that traffic moves faster and more effectively through that intersection, because you have a left turn signal that's there on for a long time, but you only have an 8-car turn lane. So we could move cars faster through there if you just extend that turn lane. There are things that you can do now that would stop us from having to wait 15 to 20 minutes to get through an intersection in a rural area. We're late doing this, and there must be something you can do to help.
Thank you. I think we can all agree, and I know that I have people from the Orange County team members here who are in our traffic that live in this area, so they are also part of, the population who struggles with this. And, I'll let someone else speak to the timeline, but if the mayor was here, he would tell you that getting the sales tax passed would have helped with some of that funding. What I'll tell you is that Florida's tax base of waiting a little bit to have that sales tax as our infrastructure, it does always put us behind, right? Because we have to wait for impact fees or road share agreements with developers or wait for that. So there is a problem, but I would say that at this point, one of the things that I know that we're all committed to is to try to find short, medium, and long term. Because that,
That's all I'm saying.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future of Florida's tax structure or even Orange County's, but I think that we can take what we've got and make sure, for starters, I make sure none of it's on the table that could come out to D1. I'm going to fight for every scrap of it out here in D1 as far as resources, but the second part of that is that we can try to gather as many experts in one room as possible to hear these things so that we can get to the ones that are the quickest, easiest, and then understanding that there's going to be things that we have to potentially wait.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll address the timeline. Typical roadway project takes about 8 years. You have a 2-year period for a study. Can you hear me?
I must just be loud now.
Strong.
Yeah, typical roadway project takes about 8 years if all the stars align. You have an RCA roadway conceptual analysis study that takes about 1.5 years, 2 years. Then you have a design process that takes about another 2 years. Then you have the right-of-way acquisition that takes another 2 years. Then construction is another 2 years, and that's if all the stars align. We didn't get funding for both projects until 2015 through the INVEST program, and that's when we were able to start this project in earnest. So, we maybe at a year or two behind, but we really put in a lot of work into it and pushed this project. So with respect to interim improvements, the intersection at Ficquette and Summer Lake, we can look at, your suggestion, we'll take a look at it and see if it's something that's feasible within the timeline and if funding is available to do it, so we'll take a look at it and we'll get back to you.
Thank you, and I have to tell you, like, full disclosure, he lives here, like, right off Reams Road. So, like, the pain is real for all of us, and I know it feels a little bit like, because our, county seats downtown, that it's somehow like, kind of distant governing, but we live and
But
breathe
we're
it.
looking at Avalon has been done, and all these things, all these people, these developers we squeeze for money, they're all funneling people into that intersection. Why didn't we squeeze them for some money to fix that intersection?
This was one of the roadways that went under Orange County's plan because it is an older roadway. So if you think about it, Reams is there, and I know that the majority of, I think, residents that have seen the changes over these past few years, it's been like very dramatic. But yeah, if you think about that was the back way into Disney for how long? So because of that, there had been, it just fell into a different category than New Independence or Reams.
So two questions. The first is, I love wildlife. I love the signs. I'm surprised $15,000 for a sign.
For
But-
the speed feedback, for the speed feedback.
Speed feedback.
Speed feedback signs.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, all of the signage, and I'll direct this to the captain, doesn't appear to slow people down. We have people regularly on Summer Lake Park Boulevard passing me at more than double the posted speed. And I get it, you have officers out there occasionally. I love all the signs, but if people aren't going to do anything about them and there's not going to be aggressive enforcement of the speed, it's just pure wasted money. It's great that flashes that you're doing, and actually the ones on Summer Lake Boulevard, I've seen them flash 75 miles an hour in a posted 35. We need to figure out something other than feedback signs. But the second thing, and I think I speak for everyone here and just a comment more than anything else, is Summer Lake Park and Reams needs to stay a traffic light.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
I just, there's like 4 accidents a week there now with the traffic light. I see it become a killing zone on a roundabout.
No, it's not. That is going to be, well, I can't answer.
Yeah, we have a traffic light.
It's
there,
a, it will,
Yeah, there's one now.
The design
Well,
is
it's
for
gonna
it
be,
too, yeah.
not only traffic light, it's gonna, as I said, it's gonna be smoother transition from north to south. Right
Yeah.
now, it's
Thank
closed
you.
up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Don Kenzior, Direct Nose Notes, an environmental nonprofit. We're the ones who've been monitoring the wildlife mortality out here and the water levels for about 10 years. We brought up the issue of the wildlife back in 2015. Kudos to Jennifer and her team. I'm very happy with the long-term wildlife crossing, the design for that. However, I'm going to pivot to the short term because if we don't do something now, there's going to be no wildlife to use a crossing in 4 years or so when the road is done. As you can go to our website, we have a Reams Road Wildlife Mortality Report that we did in 2015 to 2019. That came out in 2020. We were projecting that if things weren't done to reduce mortality on that road, that we would see over 1,000 animals killed by 2024, the end of 2024. We actually logged 20,000 animals in April. 1,000 animals on that road, crossing 19 species, 2 threatened, 1 endangered. And as the gentleman said, the wildlife crossing signs, we worked with Commissioner Vanderlei to get those put in. I don't know who we turned to. And we saw a slight decrease after we put them in. But what happened is because we had traffic enforcement out there. I know at the time we had very aggressive traffic enforcement because we said, you gotta lower the speed because people are going too fast. And that was when the road was 55. So you guys dropped it to 45. What's happened now is the pandemic the wildlife mortality dropped just by sheer less cars on the road, but now it has rocketed over the last year because of the extra people in the development coming on, and there is literally no enforcement. I get notes from the community all the time. I have had not one observation, you can tell us, Sheriff Mina, because his job's going to be on the line in this community. People are sick and tired of the speeding and the traffic issues going through there. There's probably every person in this room who probably can speak about being passed by somebody doing 80, 90, on there. I pulled out of the development that I lived in, and I was approaching 35 miles per hour right in the wildlife crossing, and just as I pulled out and in, a car flew past me, probably going very close to 100, and whizzed around that way. So there has been no enforcement. The only thing that brings the wildlife mortality down is enforcement. So I'm going to ask you, go back to the sheriff and say, let's get people out there working on enforcement now. Because as we shared with Commissioner Wilson, we've been dealing with this issue for 7 years. Excuse me. Our board voted that when we hit 1,000, if we ever got to that point, we would transfer this to our national partners who have the resources to fight this more aggressively. As of this Thursday, Thursday is the last day that we have ownership of this. After Thursday, it goes to the national partners, and it's going to accelerate action significantly. So my suggestion. What's that?
If we can't get new traffic lights in the roads,
Oh,
it's not gonna help.
well,
They can yell all they want.
I can tell you this, that when we were petitioning for action back in 2016 or so, that nothing was done. We had repeated requests that went through. It changed overnight when ABC News did a story on this in 2017. Literally the next week, signs were out there, grass was cut back, the sheriff was out there aggressively pulling people over. So what I'm saying is, it's going to be a black eye in the county because this is going to go to national and it's going to showcase there. It's going to reflect poorly on Disney because just by sheer volume, a lot of the people are cast members that are going through there. So you can connect the dots and see how pleasant it's going to be. The transportation, I ask you guys got to come up with, if the rumble strips don't work, what else? You guys are the engineers, we're not. I can just tell you what's happening out there. And, like the gentleman said, they're not slowing down, through there. So without enforcement and, what other things we can do, whether it's lane marking, to show that you're coming through, a hazardous or critical area, wildlife crossing area, that would probably be helpful. But as we said, if there's nobody out there to enforce this, it's just going to be,
Listen, I've told you this, I'll say it again. I would love a national partner to come in and help us advocate for something because, quite frankly, all over the county, all over the country, all over the world, wildlife doesn't have the same kind of rights a human does. But what we know is we can pull down some of that money for the safety that will keep humans who are crossing alive and apply it. The saddest, part of this, I think, at least when I know how hard Captain Ela's team works, and these are people that are, spending their time even right now after hours with us, that quite frankly, if they are trying to make a decision between a call for someone speeding and someone shot, they're going to go for someone shot. And that is the reality of our community. And I'm talking about broadly. And so I've had meetings with Captain Ela, with the undersheriff, with Sheriff Mina, about, really my request this budget season has been, can we find some money for substation and Horizon West? Very early stages. Once again, I know we want it done like this, and the advocacy for having the ability to be nimble in enforcement it's very challenging when the sector that you cover includes not just Horizon West, but all the way through Pine Hill and all the way over there.
5 years ago.
Yeah, but I'm just saying this is it is a humongous county. They are stretched thin. So what I can, they're a constitutional officer, to your point about election season, and I think it's a fair point because it does sometimes raise some of the conversations that we should be having. But sheriff is a constitutional officer and is, very aware, lives also in District 1, very aware of the challenges with the growth, and was very agreeable to discussing the possibility of a substation. So that is definitely on the horizon. Now, that doesn't help with staffing, and quite frankly, that's an issue for law enforcement across the state, across the country. And so, there are layers of challenges there. I'm gonna let Captain Aguila speak to I think, the question about enforcement, but I just want you to know, we speak a lot. I meet with Sheriff Mina a lot, and I love the work you do. I think it's an important thing that we have all that data information, and I would encourage your national partner to come and partner with us. We've passed, even my 2 years here, there's been 4 ordinances that I wouldn't have been able to get done that allows, enforcement are more tools, it allows us to pull down budget grant, because I was able to partner with a national. So that is not something that I feel like is a threat. I really welcome it, and we've had a lot of success in changing the law by partnering with a national organization. So that being said, let me go ahead and give Captain Neil a chance to.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Dennis, not Captain. I'm the David Captain. So, appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'll just speak candidly. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I have been. I grew up on a farm. I love animals. I have a certain amount of staffing, and I'm going to give you resources as best I can. And we can probably do a couple things a little better. But if I have to choose between a human life and a wild animal, it's got to be human life. And unfortunately, that's kind of what I'm faced with on a regular basis. I'm happy to have the discussions with you. I'm happy to generate reports for you. I'm happy to interact with you and figure out the best times of day that we can selectively take care of some of your problems, but that requires a discussion, not kind of veiled threats about people getting elected or not getting elected or national partners. That's not going to go anywhere. So if you want to have that discussion offline, I'm happy to. But keep in mind, I am charged with human safety as a priority. That will not change. We can work around some of these other things, and I'm happy to. I'd also tell you that traffic enforcement is the #1 complaint in any law enforcement agency anywhere. People are flat out rude now. They are aggressive by nature. We are becoming more aggressive as a people and as a culture on a daily basis. I've been here for 28 years. It is astounding what people are willing to do to each other, and that is demonstrated in driving habits on a regular basis. Traffic enforcement is a constant challenge for us. I'm sure you've seen the national news stories around the country, to include here, of these takeover crews that are going out in their hot rod cars, taking over intersections, doing donuts around our fire department, holding them hostage while they're doing that. We are on that every single week with every semblance of an extra body that we can put on it, trying to resolve that. Why? Because that's human life. So for traffic enforcement, they are the ones posing the greatest threat to all of you, your children, and your well-being on a regular basis. So I have to triage, and my peers have to triage the level of complaint and the level of safety. We would love to have 5 times the personnel we have and to have a police officer at every intersection. But that is not the reality of the situation, folks. Someone mentioned the redistricting has been going on for a number of years. Where's a piece of wood?
Yeah.
August 22nd is the go live date on that. What does that mean for you? That means for you that Sector 3, which I am in charge of, loses everything north of the 408 and everything north of the Turnpike. Okay? I will give you a statistic. The Greater Horizons West area last year produced roughly 188 Part 1 crime reports. Part 1 crimes are everything from homicide to someone broke into your car. Okay? 188. Pine Hills produced 1,294. So if you're me, where are your resources? Where the people's lives are being endangered. So that isn't to say that you don't deserve to have the enforcement that you need. But I assure you, I'm doing the best that I can. We'll get some more enforcement, traffic enforcement. I know wildlife, early morning hours, early evening hours, primary is when they're transferring, they're going to eat and all those things. We can take some additional efforts selectively around that, for sure. And I really love this plan that I've seen the county partners come up with. I think having those culverts for the wildlife to transfer through is going to be a positive change. We'll continue to plug at it, but you aren't being ignored. You know, this is life.
If I may just add to that,
it's a public safety issue, and I understand exactly where you're coming from and the issues. I'll share this anecdote. We had a pair, a couple who volunteered with us, who were marathon runners, who ran that road all the way up Reams Road to Ficquette, all the way around Berkshire and back down. And they would report to us, when they saw an animal or something like that. They actually carried surgical gloves with them because his wife was a nurse, and they would remove the animal from the road if it was safe to do so. They were literally 3 times had to jump off the side of the road. They weren't on the road. They were jogging on the side of the road into the wetland, into the water, to dodge vehicles that had come off the roadway doing excessive speed. So yes, it is. We're monitoring the wildlife, but I can tell you. And here's what happened. They moved. They said, we're done with this. They can't live their lifestyle that they moved here for. So they moved in the past year. Thank you.
Absolutely, given, got it. We've got it. I've had 7 people murdered in Pine Hills this year. Okay? I'm just trying to give you a perspective on things. We're gonna get some more traffic enforcement down on Reams in that area. We'll do some, especially that early morning and early evening hours when the wildlife is kind of in progress of going to feeding areas and stuff like that. We can certainly do that. I just want to leave you with the impression that you're not being ignored. I welcome you to come out. Come on out for a night or two. I'll show you what we do on a daily basis. Maybe that'll give you a little different perspective on how many times that alert tone goes off and how many times we have a report that someone just got a gun stuck in their face or got a knife shoved in their ribs or their car got carjacked or any of those number of horrific things that go. And keep in mind, every time one of those things happens, that's not one deputy responding. That's 8, 10 aircraft up, canines responding for a protracted event. We would love for none of that to happen. I would love for none of that to happen.
Could I ask a question? With all this growth, do they add more officers? Oh, I'm loud, aren't I? With all this growth, do they add more officers?
The county commissioners, the county commission funds our budget, right? So the sheriff every 2 years submits a budget proposal. They have been, to my knowledge, extraordinary partners with funding. I'm gonna be candid with you. You watch the news? What am I supposed to represent right now? I'm an evil bastard who victimizes people. So it is a challenge in this day and age to get young folks to say, who have a college education and can go out and get a career, do I want to be painted like that on the news every day, or do I want to find another job?
No, I don't watch that news.
So, so there's some challenges, right? There are some challenges with getting onboarding new people. And here's another fun fact. If I hire you today, it'll be about 14 to 18 months before you're on the road by yourself. So if I retire today and they hire you to replace me, you're a year and a half out before you're replacing me. So we're not bagging groceries at the store. It's going to take a lot of training and a lot of stuff to get up and going. The county, to my knowledge, the commissioners and Commissioner Wilson in particular has been an outstanding partner. I'm not a politician. I'm not paid to say that. She's been outstanding with all of these issues. I've never seen a more involved, conscientious leader of the community than I have seen in her. So that's not the issue. The issue is really the funding is there, getting the people interested, and then when you take in mind there's only so much of a pipeline, how many people can we put through at a time, right? And I'm old, 28 years. Most of my peers are saying, no, I'm out, I'm retired, I'm going to go live on the beach somewhere in the mountains.
No.
So it's, I was part of the Clinton Cops Ahead program, which is, there's a lot of folks in here with gray hair. It was a 90s program, right? So I was this huge wave of hiring of law enforcement throughout the country, and Orange County Sheriff's Office was one of those agencies. I was part of this large group of young people who was hired in. We're all aging out. When we go, it's a year and a half to replace us at a ground level. So there's just some interesting challenges right now related to staffing, but none of those, to my knowledge, have anything to do with the county funding, giving proper funding for us to fill these roles.
and I was gonna say, if I can tag on to that, literally right before we started, as an aside, we were discussing opportunities for our young people to be able to go into law enforcement, and how do we partner with the local college programs, training programs, tech programs, who may, if there is a path. I'm so proud of the job that Orange County Sheriff's Department does training, because we are not, at the end of that, in the news for things like that, because we do such an incredible job of hiring the cream of the crop and training them to be qualified professionals when they get out there. So we don't want to shortcut that. That's not where we're going to shortcut. And to the point about looking for opportunities, that's why when we come to things like this, we bring a multidisciplinary team, because there isn't going to be any secret sauce, any magic wand. We need enforcement to work with design, to work with some of the short-term public works to make sure that and all of those things have to come together for the safety of our wildlife, as well as our citizens. So that is something that I try to make sure we're all collecting. I think that, hopefully this upcoming year, we'll hear more information about the potential shakeup with those lines, and also with the substation. But it is something that I say all the time, is that we are paying a lot of the bills because of this growth in the county, and how do we make sure that they're getting the tools they need to then be able to do their jobs, knowing that this is coming from our citizenry here.
I would love my substation to be in the middle of this community.
Me too.
Me
So-
too.
And I think it's coming. It's coming, folks, it's coming. She's been a great advocate for it. The sheriff's all for it. This community is growing exponentially. The need for more deputies in this community is going to do nothing but increase. For sure, I would love for the central hub for where my folks operate out of to be right here in the middle of this community. That is my desire, and the commissioners as well. So.
I want to make sure before we go on to the next question, because there was also about some of the temporary, before we get to the long term, right? Because I think did you have anything you wanted to add on? No, okay. Was there anybody in particular that did a present that you wanted to maybe give a chance to? We can continue to dialogue it. Okay. Okay, do that short term. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, just one other question on the law enforcement side. And don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating a non-sworn officer doing traffic stops by any stretch of the imagination. But are there other things we can look at? I know you probably do the decoy cars better than a lot of departments, because they don't sit one place all the time. Are there other things we can look at where possibly using civilian personnel to somehow encourage better speed control and things like that?
Pace car down at Hunter's Creek. It doesn't look so great.
I'm not sure. The decoy cars is a potential. Those are mostly used kind of in the tourist district, but I can see if I can get my hands on a few of those. As far as civilians do it, you're absolutely right. Florida statute doesn't allow somebody who's non-sworn to issue speeding tickets.
We wouldn't want them doing it anyway.
Right, no, I got you. Just give me a minute here to see what I can readjust in some other divisions in our traffic division, and keep in mind, like I said, what you're talking about, traffic enforcement, from one end of this county to the other, north, south, east, and west, is the #1 citizen complaint, like tenfold over anything else. And I don't care what community it is. It could be a relatively safe, really nothing crime related. It could be the most crime heavy community that you can be aware of. Their #1 complaint is still traffic. So we do a tremendous amount of traffic enforcement as it is. It's really about kind of piecemealing those moving parts into specific areas for temporary purposes or for time-to-time purposes, and trying to touch everything that we can to kind of make folks wonder, I wonder if they're out there today while they're driving down the road. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Is there a reason we can't drop the speed limit to 35 miles an hour now instead of waiting? I mean, you gotta buy the signs anyway. Slow them down now.
Yeah, so we do have it for the warning signs, but it is something that we can consider right now.
No, not the warning signs, the real signs.
No, yes,
the white
exactly. So I'm gonna be having to talk to the engineers. I know that the Reams Road already has been decided that is gonna be 35 miles per hour.
ones.
And yes, and we do have several tools. Just to give you a little bit of the background, before we use what we call the 85th percentile, but it means that for you to be able to change the existing posted speed, you need to take some traffic counts. But if the traffic counts are higher, then we need to increase the actual posted speed. Now, the DOT changed that approach, and they're talking about context classification. So the context classification is also the land development in the surrounding. Yes, and because this is, then we have the option that we can reduce it, but we just need to make sure that if we are gonna be exercising that option, just to make sure that the roadway, when they come back, they do match that, because then we'll reduce it and then it is increased. For Reams Road, right now we know that based on what it was said today, unless I'm mistaken, that is at 35 miles per hour. So this is something that we can consider, and it will be short-term, but also it will be in alignment with the long-term. We'll have to analyze that for Ficquette Road.
Agreed. Joanne.
Thank you, Commissioner, for being here tonight. My name is Joanne Quarles, and I have witnessed all of the changes for Reams Road and Ficquette Road for over 50 years. I have lived there. I live on Lake Mabel, and I can tell you that this is a very much needed project. My question to you is, what is being done to facilitate removing yourself from the roadway in an emergency? Even if you get pulled over and you've got these lanes, where are the police going to go for safety for themselves and for the client? So that's one of my big questions. The roadway looks beautiful. I'd love to see it. I'd also like to see and learn just a little bit more about the wildlife corridor. As you know, we witnessed one of those situations also off of Reams Road, closer up to 535, that we'd like to discuss.
I was going to say, somebody could address the ability for people to design. So,
What do you do when there's an emergency?
so the way it's designed now is, what, I think, the concern or for the future.
For the design doesn't have any provision.
The new design.
The new design doesn't have a provision for a pull-off shoulder.
The shoulders.
So you pull over into the walkway? What is this officer going to do?
Are you referring to the existing roadway design?
I'm referring to all the changes you're making for Reams Road and Ficquette Road.
Okay.
The future.
And even on the current Reams Road that you have, there is no provision or no way for someone to pull off in case of an emergency with their automobile, or if they're being stopped by our local policeman. His safety is just as important to me as my safety is.
So in the existing condition, you know, there are some areas where there is a shoulder where people can pull off and, you know, stop and because of if there's a fire truck or if the policeman stop them. But in the 4-lane design, when someone hears the siren, they're supposed to veer to the right to be able to let the emergency vehicle pass on the left side. So
What happens when I have a flat tire? I'm just saying, there's no thought process to that, in my personal opinion. I'd like for that to be addressed in some fashion so that our safety and the public safety is on top of it.
Yeah, in the current situation, we have constraints with right-of-way, and for a lot of that corridor, we have wetlands that we can't encroach on. So there's definitely a constraint there. There are some areas where you may have room to pull off, but our right-of-way is constrained until we finish the acquisition process. And then remember that we're going to be moving from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. So, you know, we're going to have
two sides of the street.
on
so
both
you
sides of the
still-
street, and you're going to have curbs, so you won't be able to pull off, but you'll be on the outside lane. And, you know, you do what we do currently on any other road, 4-lane road, and you just have to move over when there's some emergency vehicle approaching. You know.
What is going to be done on the Reams Road where the flooding was, where you had to shut down the road last year? What's being done about that? Is that road being elevated?
Yes.
Yes, we are elevating the road to the 100-year design, so it will be higher than that.
That ought to be interesting.
It'll be up by the level of the 7-Eleven.
Excuse me?
It'll be up by the level of the 7-Eleven, it's 6 feet lower.
You're raising the level of the road 6 feet?
No,
No.
It's about 100-year flood line.
The road is being raised higher than the 100-year elevation.
But what does that
Do you
mean?
know what how that compares to how it is today?
It's 4 feet.
Is that
It's approximately 4 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
To answer her question, why you're taking 9 feet, 0.5 in the medium section of the traffic way? Why? Because she has an interesting question. Why are we giving a buffer here of 19.5 feet in the medium?
The 19.5 feet is to be able to have left turn lanes to go into the subdivisions or side streets. So that is required to be able to have those left turn lanes.
Because getting back to what she's saying, you see you have a meridian there on both sides. You can't pull over a car in there if you look at this diagram you have here. So what she is trying to say, she is correct. How would it, if we had an emergency stop or something, where would the vehicles pull over? And if there are 2 lanes that are stuck, because she's correct, because fire would not be able to pass, fire or police. How are we able? We can't. If you look at it, there's no way you go off to the right or the left, we'll be jumping up on the meridian.
you would be blocked in the right-hand lane while you're
Well, it's not the entire right turn lane that it will be blocked. It will be, some of it will be open for the emergency vehicle to be able to pass on the left side.
Chief Buffkin, if I can get the quick expertise from you, and I apologize for doing this, but I know that it's been a concern, and I agree. I try to visualize what that would look like, and knowing sort of the way, let's use Winter Garden Island, which I think is a comparable, right? It has a large median, it's got the, tell me what happens if it is kind of jammed up there, how do we get around, or, you know, I could bring Captain Neela back into this, but.
no.
Well, we're just talking about that, you know, if you have the curb sides and the large median, what happens, right? If I'm describing this correctly, there's not shoulder, so there's, like right now, there's no shoulder because of right-of-way, right? And it's just really wet right up to the shoulder. Eventually, right-of-way is acquired, we're going with a wider design, we have more median, but now we're curbed, correct? That's
Right.
what happens when a large.
I don't think I'm gonna have the answer that you all are looking for, because there is no good answer. The answer is, our people are trained to drive in emergency situations, they're gonna take the path of least resistance. They will go over the curb if they have to. I mean, obviously, there's a concern with soft areas there when it's flooded, when it's muddy. We know all that, our units are heavy, you know, they're trained drivers, they're gonna take the path of least resistance and hopefully people move over. I mean, we have the same traffic areas. I would tell you this is not the only area we have traffic problems in. Our people are very experienced in navigating through traffic, and they just do the best they can. Sorry, I know you're looking for something more, but
No, I think that's reassuring.
that's really what we do.
Yeah, no, I think that's reassuring. And quite frankly, I think, you know, talk about being proud of training. We are opening in Orange County training for anybody who wants to make a career in fire and rescue, paramedics. So it is one of those. I continue to be really, Inspector, really proud of trying to make sure we keep the talent here at home, you know, just, yeah, thank you. Okay, so I think we do probably, Joanne, maybe we can do a side look with them at the map and some areas of concern. I think there are some that the water comes up far enough that, to your point, even if you try to get off right now, I worry more about, I think right now, that the heavier equipment could end up submerged or in the mud, or whoever's trying to get out of the way of the equipment could end up that way. And so I think we could take a look at maybe some of those places that are top concern. All right. Oh.
I have a question about, and I want to make sure I phrase this right. You mentioned it, Commissioner Wilson, that people in the audience have raised the same concerns, but it's been kind of piecemeal. You all have a great long-term plan. I don't think there's anybody really complaining about the long-term plan. We're here, a lot of us, because we want something, some relief in the short term. You alluded to it. Some of you gentlemen have talked about it a little bit. Can you be specific about the types of things you're looking at for short-term relief and what the timeline might be? What is short-term?
I think that's very
Actually, our division, we designed a 4-lane road from 2 lanes to 4 lane, with the short term is handled by a different division. If there's some improvement at certain intersection.
Jennifer?
I'm just going to take it being the oddball here. I'm not the engineer. So I think we've heard some great suggestions. We've heard the turn lane. We've heard where we're at with the permitting. As soon as we get all those final permits, I think we can look to make sure that we have enough right away. We can go back. Our director is here. He's hearing all these comments. The commissioner's hearing it. We're hearing it. I think we can go back and look at perhaps some interim improvements. I don't live out here. I'm on the same situation. I'm on Lake Pickett. So I have the same situation you guys do, but I have no roadway and there is no plan for the near future. So I understand your pain. But I think probably what we need to hear, Raymond's the only one who lives here, if we could hear some more suggestions of what measures you really want to see what's happening out here. We've heard the right turn lane from Summer Lake to Ficquette and Reams.
Yeah.
What are some of the other items like that you think would help us to look at the traffic, look at the right-of-way? I will be honest, even with the wildlife crossing, we're really constrained with that transmission line, especially in its current condition, like where exactly it is. We have no right-of-way to do anything in the interim right now. We're on the transmission line side. So, I mean, I'm just speaking frankly, so anything you guys could give us?
I appreciate that response. The two that I heard from people, number one was, of course, the turn lane.
Yeah.
And the second is the flooding at that intersection. Those were the two I heard tonight. That's why I wanted to know what you heard and what we might expect as far as feedback.
But I even think having some gravel shoulder would be.
We'll just need our permit for Reams Road.
Okay.
Before we could do anything on Reams, just because of the wetland condition. So we'll have to get our permits done, pay our mitigation. I have a pay request in right now to pay for the mitigation for Ficquette. The board did approve it. So as soon as that's paid for, we'll have our final permit condition satisfied for the water management district. Like Azim said, we're finalizing the DEP permit, but the mitigation did not change between the two. So as soon as we get the permits, we would be able to do something, providing that we had the right of way and the funding.
Stick around, we'll walk over and look at on the map.
Sorry, guys. Well, now I'm stuck with it.
Go, Jennifer.
Now you
Go,
go.
Jennifer.
Sorry, I'm
What
back
else?
for a second.
ask
I
some
was
questions.
reading your FAQs and I saw something really cool and I wanted to ask about it. I see it says number 13 is talking about a roundabout at Summer Lake and Sidell. And this actually says that the traffic study is done and that intersection is going to get a roundabout and we're going into design. So if that's true, when do we get to see that? Is that like 2030-ish? Maybe?
Okay, is this
But I'm
idea?
not just, 8 years, I'm just being realistic. I'm not trying to be smart. Like,
Yes,
No,
yes,
it's very
yes.
fair.
So when we started looking at that intersection, there's a lot of left turn heavy movement and back up. So it is one of the things, I know that some people are amenable to the roundabouts, some are not. What I can tell you is that the number one reason that people get killed on the roadways is because of speeding. So if we can go ahead and reduce the speeds, traffic signals, they're wonderful, roundabouts, they're wonderful, but there is a distinct use where you use a traffic signal and when you have a roundabout. If you have a traffic signal, unfortunately, if people are distracted, that it seems to be the case. If they run a red light and they hit the oncoming traffic, that might be perhaps a T-bone. A similar thing, it happened with Clarcona Ocoee. There was a family, 2 sisters with their kids. They were making a left turn onto Gaymar. It was the Dollar General. And then the opposing vehicle was traveling. The posted speed was 45 miles per hour. It was at 90 miles per hour. So when you get hit at that, now on a roundabout, you can force people to slow down because if you don't slow down, you're gonna go through that center island and you're not gonna be able, I mean, hopefully you can survive, but the nature of the obstacles and people having to have an offset, horizontal offset, and we have also vertical offsets. So everything is considered part of the solution. But on that one, yes, we do have a consultant. They are almost finished, 90% design. We want to make sure that, and this is gonna be done in a scale, because you can have a 1 lane or 2 lanes in the rotary. So we are gonna, based on the volumes that is existing now, we're proposing a 1 lane, but also that we can expand and reconstruct it to 2 lanes. It seems that the right-of-way is minimal or incidental, which it can be done. But yes, we want to make sure that when we have the design, we will have a meeting with Commissioner Wilson, and then we will have a meeting with the community so we can present to you the facts. But yes, this is a viable option which we are considering. And not only on that, but we have also another study that is coming from Avalon, on Seidel, all the way to Summer Lake Park, that we are considering similar traffic controls that perhaps could be feasible, because also there's a lot of speeding. So thank you for your question.
So you didn't answer the last part though. I know that's a hard one.
Okay, what is the last part? I apologize.
Was any guesses as to when?
Okay, to when? Okay, and that is.
We won't hold you to it.
The study's done, so that's the
Okay, and I'm glad that you asked. If you have been watching, yes,
Yeah, we gotta wrap up after this.
okay, yeah. So if you have been watching the presentations for the $100 million for the accelerated transportation safety funding, that perhaps some money could be used of that, but a runabout, it can cost at the tune of $2.5 million. And right now, there's no money budgeted for that. So funding is a critical issue. And then Commissioner Wilson can tell you where they fund. So there's $15 million for safety.
He knows I have to go wrestle for it.
There's a couple of good wrestling organizations in the area.
Oh, for real. I mean, like I said, I broke it down with, how it's justified here. So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, last question, then we gotta wrap it up.
Can I ask something
Be
real
quick.
quick? Just, do we get an email of
Absolutely.
the PowerPoint presentation?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'll send it out to the list.
Okay.
Okay.
At the last meeting, it was mentioned that one of the sides, either the east-south side or the opposite side, was not changing. I think it had to do with the community sign, that I don't remember exactly, but on the side that isn't changing from Tabor Field to Center Drive, is it possible to get temporary sidewalk? We have a lot of human beings who are walking and
We can't.
Between Tabor Field
Tabor Field and Center Drive, Center Lane.
Yeah.
It's very scary.
That's that wetland.
Until we get our permit for
When's the
our
permit?
wetland impacts, we are getting ready to apply for it for Reams. We haven't applied for it yet. So there is a wetland there, that's why there's a gap, because none of the developments wanted to do it. So it's coming back to us. So after we get the permit, probably, I don't want to overpromise because DEP takes a long time, 6 months. Maybe by next school year.
I'm
we
gonna
might
walk
be able to-
over so we can go take a look at the map though, so I can make sure we're talking about the same place. I think,
Yeah.
I know exactly
You're on
where.
the north side of the road.
It's the south side, it's either side, I don't care.
I was gonna say, we have a
And I'm
gap
not
on the
even a
north side by
walker.
the trail.
I just,
You see people, yeah.
I'm scared for their lives.
Yeah.
And just the other day in that torrential downpour, there's a poor, not financially poor, but, I felt bad for the individual who was riding their bike, in their uniform. So.
If you meet me over there.
Yeah,
I'll get
let's
the
walk
location.
over there, and then also, if you all just please, if you have not, was there a sign-in sheet up front?
Yes.
If you have not signed in, please do that now, and we'll make sure to send out this, presentation to everybody. If there's any additional questions, we will connect you with whatever team member is needed, even if it's something that, the team member wasn't here, we will hunt them down. Thank you so much again for being here. We will be back out. Thank you.